Welcome, everybody, and finally, after nearly a decade, over a decade actually, we finally get to play a college football game. It is back, College Football 25. Man, I am absolutely pumped. Cannot wait to play this game. Obviously, seen all the features, seen how it looks. To me, it looks absolutely amazing, and really, just to have a college football game in hand, I just cannot wait. Especially with all the real players in. That is awesome to see. I mean, just the recruiting aspect, everything to do with college football, the atmosphere. It's just something else. Obviously, the NFL is its own kind of thing, and we'll have a Madden franchise coming up as well. But this college football dynasty is absolutely going to be amazing, and I cannot wait to get into it. So today, I just wanted to go real quick into our top 5 teams that I'm thinking about at the moment, or top 5 schools. Now, there are some prerequisites for me personally, kind of some requirements going into a dynasty that maybe differ from some other people out there. For me, one has got to be, I would say, realism. In the sense of realism, hey, some teams out there, it is cool to play with, say, I'm just taking anybody out, for example, like Ball State, right? But I don't see them ever winning a national championship. I know it's a game. I know it's, you just want to take a school from absolutely nowhere, or used to have Team Builder back in the day and take a team out of nowhere and just win a national championship. For me, that takes a little bit out of it. I want to at least have a chance. I want to take a smaller school that still is kind of in that, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, that you maybe out of nowhere, good recruiting class here or there, could take over and take off. So for me, it is based off realism. If I can never see that school winning a national championship, it's just tough for me to really continue with it and get into it. So that's one. Obviously, uniforms. You got to have great uniforms, the atmosphere, and obviously rivalries what make college football as well. If you have a very good rival, usually everybody out there has at least one rival, so I don't think that'll be hard to really match up with. But I want to face some of the good teams, and sometimes we play in certain conferences. Maybe you take a team and move them to the SEC or move them to the Big Ten, something like that. But still, for me, those are some little requirements that, for me personally, playing the game, that I go with. So, with that, I think we start with, right now, our top 5. I will have other possibilities that are kind of on the back burner, and I'm always open to ideas as well. I will have a poll down below that you guys can vote in. I'm going to let this go, obviously, to the debut of NCAA football in here in a few weeks. So I'll let this go for an absolute while, and then, take into account how everything's looking. Because I still, even though I might have, I'll tell you what, I don't really have a personal favorite. Usually with Madden, I will still have a personal favorite of who I want to go with, and I take that into account because obviously I'm still playing the game, so I still want to, enjoy the franchise team that I'm playing with. But right now, with this game, I don't know if it really matters. I mean, right now, I just have some teams that I've looked at. I've tried to do some research, go through some things. I don't want a team has like a top 5 recruiting class and is instantly going to be good within the next year or two. I want to, still build it up, but obviously still have that realism for sure. And there's a favorite in there here. There's a couple favorites, I would say, for me that it would be fun to play with just on a personal level. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the top 5 schools that I'm thinking of possibly starting this dynasty with. So at number 1, we are going to go with the Miami Hurricanes. Yep, the U. So this isn't in any order either. This isn't like 1 through 5. This is my top team. No, we're just going 1 through 5. But the University of Miami, the U, I mean, such history. I mean, so many great players have come from that area. Maybe for me, one of my favorite players of all time, maybe top player of all time, Ed Reed. I mean, fantastic, history of the University of Miami, but they've been down for so long, really so long. Even so bad that they actually split with Nike a few years ago, which is to me still crazy to think about because I always see that swoosh on the jersey of Miami. But last year, 7-6, they lost the Pinstripe Bowl to Rutgers. But really, since then, they've just been kind of a mediocre, not really anything. The 2020 year, they went 8-2. But really than that, they just haven't been anything. Now, you could say they have a top 5 recruiting class, as I just said. I don't want to go with those type of teams. But still, how's it going to pan out? It just hasn't panned out lately for Miami. Their last bowl win is 2016. I mean, they won a national championship last time was 2001. So Ed Reed was on that 2001 team, which if you don't know about that 2001 Miami Hurricanes team, go take a look at that roster. It's probably the best, I would say the best college football team of all time, you could say. Just ridiculous roster. But Miami, just the history, just trying to bring back a Florida team, the top three, Florida State, Florida, and Miami, just trying to bring back that, Florida rivalry would be absolutely just awesome to play with. So Miami would be number one right now. The first team to start with would be on the list here. All right, let's go to number two. The second team on the list, we're going to stay in the ACC, and that is going to be Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, kind of another, school has solid history. They were good for a long time. Frank Beamer, head coach there for a long time, just put up quality teams after quality teams. Obviously, you have Mike Vick back in the day. But they've kind of been since, even before Beamer left, and once he has left, they have just not been really anything. 7-6 as well last year, just like Miami. They won the Military Bowl versus Tulane. But before that, 3-8, 6-6. Their last double-digit win season was 2016. The recruiting class coming in, if you look at some other areas, around 42 to 45. So it's not like they have a crazy recruiting class coming in. Now, the ACC, it's obviously Florida State goes undefeated last year. And it's an interesting conference. Clemson, I'm sure, will be back. But who knows what's going to happen really conference-wise in the next few years. We'll see. But Virginia Tech, trying to bring them back, try to get a national championship for that school, build them back up. I think that would definitely be a cool option. As we'll head on to number three. So our number three, we're going to go down to the SEC. And we are going to look at the University of Arkansas. So Arkansas, 4-8 last year. Another school that won the previous year in 2022, 7-6 with a Liberty Bowl, that 3 overtime classic against Kansas. But the last time they were in the SEC championship was 2006. Recruiting class this year, you could say it's a top 30, right around that, right around 30. But in reality, they just haven't been anything really since Darren McFadden and Felix Jones took over years and years ago. They have just kind of been, sputtering and mediocrity. And I think Arkansas could be a, really an interesting choice. And you play in that SEC, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, even if, good luck trying to get 9-10 wins in this conference. Just so many good teams. And that alone would make the rebuild just, I would think, much harder. Just to deal with the SEC year in and year out is just going to make it absolutely tough. So I think Arkansas, definitely a school on the list who we could possibly go with for this dynasty. As we'll move on to number four. So at number four, this is going to be kind of a split. Now, I know it's two teams, so we're just kind of split in the moment. University of Central Florida, UCF, and USF, South Florida. They are rivals, obviously, but these would be too interesting. You kind of get the Florida theme going on here, obviously. Florida, just an absolute hotbed of talent. Same thing with Texas. But UCF, they actually, 2018, they go 12-0. Could have been a national championship, definitely team, but they lose the Fiesta Bowl to LSU, so they had that undefeated season. Since then, best year, 9-5 in 2022. Last year, 6-7. Recruiting class a little down. So they've gone back to kind of like normalcy and what they could be, but they could be something. Like I said, you have Florida, you have that hotbed down there with talent, so if you can tap into it, beat other teams like Florida, Miami, Florida State, and really get those recruits in, you could really turn things around and really just be, maybe that magic season of 2018 just turns into an every year type deal. So that would be definitely interesting for four. And same thing with South Florida. Now, South Florida's not on the end of Central Florida for sure. South Florida has struggled. Last year, 7-6, have turned things around the win the Boca Raton Bowl against Syracuse. But before that, 1-11, 2-10, 1-8. Not good. This is a school that more than likely needs more of a full-on rebuild, and really a school that we could probably move around. We could do the SEC if you really wanted to. So that is one school that, is more of that full rebuild. Now, last year, they could have beat Alabama. that game was so interesting. I know the rain kind of messed with it. They could have beat Bama last year. It was very close. I remember watching that game, and I just didn't know what was happening with Alabama. But, they almost beat Alabama. So, they have some talent, but they still, on that consistent basis, need something. Recruiting class, it is in the top. It's right around 50, I would say, for this year coming in. So, I don't know. Two interesting decisions. You got those Florida rival schools. They could be options as we'll move on to number 5. And for number 5, our final team on the list before we get into some other possibilities is going to go up to the Big Ten, the University of Maryland, the Terrapins. Now, I would say this is definitely more of a homer pick. Now, I would say I'm more than likely a Penn State fan, but from Maryland area, so, Orioles, Ravens, those are my teams. But, Pennsylvania area, Penn State, same thing, but Maryland is right there. University of Maryland. So this is more, I would say, like I said, a homer pick. 8-5 last year. They won the Music City Bowl against Auburn. They've had some solid seasons. The thing is, are you going to be able to compete with Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon's coming in, Penn State? Everything is changing in the Big Ten as well. Where do you sit? Do you have a realistic shot to win the Big Ten? I'm not sure. Right now, in reality, I could ever see Maryland winning a Big Ten championship, as I'm talking about realism. But we can turn things around. We can take it. We can make them a big, football school. Used to be a basketball school. That's gone down a little bit as well. But I'm thinking we can turn this around. We can make University of Maryland up there with Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State and really compete for the Big Ten championship, really compete for a national championship. And obviously, for me, personally, that kind of like home area, it would really definitely be cool to take University of Maryland to those heights. So that would be my number 5 choice in the top 5 teams right now that I'm looking at. But we can go into some other possibilities. So I just have a few more other possibilities that I was looking at. Not sure if I would go with them. I'll still put them in the list below. Like I said, I'll have a poll below with the top 5. I'll put in this, and then if you have other ones, just put it in the comments. Let me know. I always like to tally them, go through every comment, and see what everybody else has to think about. But other possibilities, we're just going to go through this real quick. We're going to not go too quick. But one is Coastal Carolina. Obviously, more of that Southern thing. They had a solid season last year. Who knows what you could do with recruiting? Can you tap into that area? Maybe move them into the SEC? That would be interesting. East Carolina is kind of the same thing. East Carolina is one of those schools that's, you could just build them up, get to it. Do I ever see any of those teams winning a national championship? Probably not, but that's more of the fun aspect, I would say, if I went with that. And then the other two ones, I would stick to the Big Ten, Illinois or Indiana, trying to build them up. I've thought about Nebraska, obviously. Nebraska is a school that has tons of history. You could definitely try to get them back to prominence, but I'm not going to stick with them. So those are the other 4. Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, Illinois, and Indiana would really be on the other kind of just outside of possible possibilities to go with, for the Dynasty. But those are the teams I'm looking at right now. Like I said, if you have any other suggestions, just throw them down below. I'll have the poll. Let this go to the end, and I'll end up making a decision. I cannot wait for this game to come out. I am just like ready and waiting, and it's going to be fantastic. From what I've seen, it doesn't look like it's going to be bad or anything. It looks so good. I cannot wait to get into it. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So let me know down below what you guys think. Also, leave a like and comment, obviously, your team. Subscribe if you're new. Obviously, more NCAA content's going to come out. Still continue with the show. But, man, it is going to be a fantastic football season. But you guys, thank you so much for all the support. And I will see you in the next one. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.